Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Canada Immigration Live Q&A. I'm Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer. I'm here with my faithful co-pilot, Alicia Backwin-Bahari. How are you, Alicia?
I'm hanging in there. I've been sick for the last week, so I have kind of that smoky lounge singer voice going on, but I will do my
Oh,
best.
well, we can do some songs. Do you have any that you want to break out? We can do a little intro. I could have had you maybe doing the intro songs before we started our live. So, all right. Wow. What a couple, I guess a week, what a couple weeks we've had with everything going on. We've
Yeah.
got a good solid taste of what's happening with express entry, at least to some extent with these category-based draws. We are in full swing for this Canada H-1B visa holder work permit, which, oh man, is so idiotic. Like, why in the world, I'm asking this dude, like, buddy, why would you do this such that you're opening up the cart on a Sunday?
Yeah.
I think I know, because they're not working, right? Well, what the heck do you think we're going to be doing and everybody else? And it's summer. Like, oh, anyways. So I will
I
I
mean,
will save
one of
my
the other
cursing.
lawyers chimed in across the country saying, the other problem is that when they open up the caregiver programs, they open that up on January 1st at
Mm,
midnight.
yeah.
So, you know, these things are not made for the convenience of applicants or counsel.
No, they're not at all. Not at all. And you have to assume that not even for immigration is that convenient. But, what's coming to an end on July 15th, Alicia,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's a correlation is not causation, but yeah, the CUAET comes to an end on July 15th. So if there is anybody listening out there who needs to get that application filed, make sure that you do it by Friday because you don't want to be caught in, UTC time. So watch out for that universal coordinated time. Make sure that you've put your application in by latest on the Friday the 14th. So that's, tomorrow. And then maybe what'll happen is all those resources, all those officers who are processing CUAET work permits through that portal, maybe that will
Mhm.
morph into the new Canada H-1B visa portal.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So, this one time 3-year open work permit essentially is what it was, which is similar to what we're doing with H-1B. You can see the timing is pretty convenient. July 15th comes to an end, and July 16th is when the Canada H-1B opens. So will it be through the same process? One thing I want to point out to people, just as a little bit of a tip, I personally think it's going to be in the same location. I think they're going to follow the same path. Who knows? Maybe not. But if you go to our Canadian Immigration Institute, let me go to the actual page. That's the course that we have right now. I'm going to go back to the main screen. One thing I forgot, Alicia, because I've been creating videos saying, well, it could be like the Canada Ukraine, and so I've been going through and doing tutorials and demonstrations and stuff within the class, the H1B class, but I forgot that we had created there. I don't know how I could forget it. We dropped and did, spent a whole weekend putting this together, but this quit
Hmm.
video course is free. So if you guys go there and you click on it, you can get access to this course for free, and you can see how the IRCC portal works. Yes, I've already purchased it and it's free. So you can register for it there and get an idea of maybe one of the portals and the questions that you need to answer and how to sort things out. And that's all on the Canadian Immigration Institute page. But of course, our course, the H-1B work permit holder course, has modules and lessons to help guide you through. And like, if you have not registered yet, there's you haven't missed anything. Like, literally, you can go back in all the videos that we've done to this stage, the many master classes that we've done to this point, and every evening we go 7 to 9. Tonight I'll go 7 to 9, and then tomorrow will be 9 to 11 Mountain Time, and Saturday we'll see. It may be 7 to 9 as well. I may shift back because they have not released the specific instructions. I suspect it's going to be like the TR to PR pathway, where they released them the day before. And you can watch my past YouTube videos on why I don't think they've released details. But ultimately, this course, and it's like it's definitely, you can watch the video I did yesterday and put up here. It's not too late to register for the course. And then the people that were on last night, they were kind enough to give me a few little testimonials. So all these awesome people, and maybe some of them are even watching today live. but yeah, it's awesome. They've been, yeah, really, really kind. So so I got a few of them to kind of post some comments in our live feed, and yeah, it's yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is Saturday, I expect they're going to release everything. So my little trip up to the High Alpine Lake on Saturday, I just sent a text message to my friend where I was going to catch these cute little golden trout. That will get delayed probably a couple of weeks because I can't schedule something being away on Saturday when they release it, because I'm going to be going live and working with my client and developing, finalizing video content and everything so that people have the ability to connect in. And when it comes to the actual course here, if I click on view the product, you'll see that it's broken down into, learning the basics, preparing the application forms, and we already have a ton of content already in here. And it is tentative because we don't know exactly where it's going to go. Preparing, the documents, and we have sections for all of the documents that we, perceive may be required. And ultimately, we'll see what IRCC does. But it's a crazy, crazy world that we're in, and yeah, it makes sense that this is probably a similar path. Which
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think I've had a number of consults for people with respect to the Canada H-1B process, and I think a number of people don't really grasp that this is probably all going to be open and closed as of Sunday. There's a high likelihood that those 10,000 spots are going to be just instantly gone. And so if you have not already prepared or are in the process of preparing all of your forms and documents and everything that you need so that it's at the tip of your fingers and you can just slot it in whenever we figure out exactly what they're doing, you're probably going to miss out. So, make sure you have a backup plan.
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's say hello to some of the people that are hanging out here with us. We've got Rohit. Good to have you here. Eric, hello, over from Cameroon. Great to have you connecting in. We've got Daniela saying hello from the Democratic Republic of Congo. We've got Marm here from Algeria. Thanks for connecting in. Oh, Mark. There we go. Hi, Mark. And it's Mehdi from Algeria. Great to have you connecting in, Mehdi. And Rohit seems confident that there might be a stem draw today. I guess we will see, you guys. We'll talk about that in just a second. And Henry's over Nigeria. Thanks for connecting in. High value woman. That's awesome. That is fantastic. I love that profile picture. What's new? Well, we're talking about it here. Let's see what else we've got here. Elise, DRC Congo. Hey, look at that. Watching from over there in Africa. Rohit says, sorry, missed Alicia. Nice to meet you too. Hey, nice to meet you as well. And we'll do a couple more shout outs here. We've got Hardeep is over in India. Hello, Hardeep. And yeah, if this is your first time, please give us a shout. I love to highlight people connecting in. We have Abo as well, who's connecting in from Nigeria. And I know it's pretty late for you guys over there. So it's great that you're coming in and connecting in. And we've got LinkedIn. Cheatin, great to have you. We have people tuning in, not just on YouTube, but LinkedIn and Facebook. We'll wait and see if we have anyone tuning in from Facebook. So Cheatin, I actually had a consult just before with a client from Markham, just before I went live with Alicia. And yes, there's a representative from Facebook, Aruna from Germany. Great to have you connecting in, Aruna. Thank you for being here. All right. Well, let's just touch on one last little thing here, because I know people are going to be asking about it. It's these rounds of invitations and the new category-based draws that we're now starting to see come out. And lots of people were asking initially, Alicia, what will become of the no program specified draws? Will they stop doing them, or will they actually continue? Well, now we have some results. And you can see just yesterday, they did another French language, a massive one. And I think this caught a lot of people off guard. Some people are like, what's going on? And Alicia, you attended that that employer directed kind of briefing on the category-based draws. You attended that with me with IRCC. What percentage did they say of the program specific was going to be STEM? Do you remember? I'll just let you look that
Yeah.
one up, because this
Yeah,
is
I've got my
something people
notes
have
right
been
here.
saying. Yeah. And then what
So,
percentage was French? Because
mhm,
this is where people are trying to work out in their mind, 3,800 compared to
mhm.
the other ones. So what were those totals? Do you remember?
So they did say that the yearly total for Francophone, category based, plus regular draws, so overall Francophone, would be 11 to 15% as a
Mhm.
target. 11 to
Yeah.
15% was the target. And for STEM, it was 28 to 31% as the target.
Yes.
So clearly there's going to be, roughly double the amount of STEM overall for the entire year. But keep in mind that there were a number of people who've already gotten invitations to apply, from January until July of this year. So we'll have to see how those numbers shake out.
Yeah. And so people have been watching this carefully and they're saying, well, look, STEM, they only did 500. Well, how does that work? And the 500 put it at 46. And then healthcare was a little bit, we've got 2,000 healthcare so far. But then, and we haven't anything for transport and trades. So, and we don't have anything for ag yet. So those are still to come. But the Francophone, you can see here, we've got a massive amount. We got like 6,000 invitations issued for Francophone speakers. And you can see the impact of this 2,300, which 439 in and of itself is low for French. And for all intents and purposes, the interesting part of this is that most French speakers would have already qualified through the old no program specified. But you can see the emphasis of, the Liberal government has placed great emphasis on pushing this forward, and in discussions with, like their desire to expand bilingualism across the country. And that's a
And
mandate
it's
that they have.
it's super interesting, Mark, right? Because the reason that those CRS scores have gone down so significantly is because of these back-to-back French language category specific draws, right? If they had waited another, 5 months before they did another French language draw, the CRS probably would have been quite a bit higher. But it's really interesting that they can time back-to-back category-based draws, and then that has the effect of really scooping lower in the pool of CRS candidates.
It does. And if we go to, let's see, I wonder if I can round type. Okay, yeah. Let's look at CEC because this is another good example. If we just sort by CEC and we watch what happened in the 2021 when they did back to back, like that was all they were doing was CECs in 2021. You can see all of these CECs. But if you start in 2021, when they really shut down the other programs, when they started doing them, the scores were higher, right? Like we were 461, then it went to 454, and it slowly, they kept doing more rounds. It kept creeping down, 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 down to the point where for CEC, when they did this last big one, it dropped all the way down to 357 a couple times here. And so my response to the minister is, you have all of these international students, and I'm going to invite them back on to join us, but you have all of these international students that you keep kicking down the road another year, here, get another 18-month extension. And what you're doing now to them is, even though you think, well, they've got another year of experience, they'll get more CRS points. It's like freaking 10 points, maybe a few more each year. And so these people are literally languishing because they have no ability to hit these high scores. And unless you're in these specific categories, these no program specified draws with small allotments, there's only one place it's going to stay, and that's over 500 points. So this isn't a solution. And in my mind, what they have to do is they absolutely have to go back to CEC and do some of these rounds to help pull out some of these international students who are just going to be stuck, because the solution is not the solution. At least this
Mark, do
isn't.
you want to take a look at the numbers of people in the pool right now? Because I think that's interesting too. If you
Yeah.
go into the
Let's slide
current
over here.
pool, and I
Let's do
think
this
I
one.
think those numbers are only updated as of Tuesday, actually, on the
For
distribution.
July
Yeah,
11th. Yeah. So 2 days ago.
yeah. So I mean, there's not very many people over 600, right? There's only 276 candidates over 600 right now,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
That's
So those have
PNP.
mostly been
Yeah.
scooped out. Yeah, all the PNP draws are still happening. And then if you look at that huge chunk of people, right, like you've got only 834 between 491 and 500. So it has had the effect of largely pulling down those CRS scores. But it remains to be seen who jumps in.
Yeah. And most people are really in, this range of 460 to 490. Like there's a massive cohort of people that are lumped in here. And to a large extent, this 460 to 480, this range right here, is a lot of our international students,
Yeah.
because they're for a variety of reasons. So
So hopefully they will do a CEC, because if they do, that would scoop out a whole bunch of people in that 481 to 490 range, right?
Yep. So we'll see what happens. Could they do STEM? Could they continue on with their pattern? Yes, they could. If you look at their, no longer is it a every Wednesday based, draw every 2 weeks. They have been consistent 4, 5, 6, 7, all of that. And then what do we have there? 11, 12. Well, people are banking. What are we waiting for? It could be STEM. If we look at the categories and if we go back to our firm website, and if you haven't seen this before, go to Holthe Immigration Law, go to the blog, read Alicia's blog that she wrote on this topic, this blog post here, what you need to know about the category-based selections. Excellent, excellent post. She breaks down all the details. So we still are waiting for ag. We're waiting for transport, for trade. So these ones, and you can see, Alicia did a pretty good job of, ranking these, French, health, science. So far, that's kind of how it's been. So will trade happen next? Will transport? And we actually provided feedback to the government yesterday, and to our fine little minister here, who will drop off for now because you're a good guy, minister, but you're blocking our screen. So you can see here, there's, we still have these to come. So we'll see. And I suspect they're going to be small. But science and technology should take the lion's share, and it's totally reasonable to expect. So we'll see how, we'll see how it all plays out when, whether or not they ultimately do another round of invitation today, and whether it will be STEM and capture these folks here. 486, if it was STEM, Alicia, what do you think? What would your prediction be for STEM if they were to do, let's say they were to do a big one, like a 2,000 or 3,000? What do you think the score would drop down? Because these STEM folks, they're pretty high even as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm hoping it would drop down a fair amount, because if the pool numbers are only updated as of the 11th and there's been a draw as of the 12th, that's going to scoop out, it's already scooped out some of those people already sitting in the pool as it appears right now. So hopefully, if they're due another specific STEM, then it would be, maybe high 479 or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I would hope
Yeah, I
it'd
think
be
so. I
something
think
like that.
yeah, whether it could push to, to get below, it's to be seen, like below 480, but I think you're right around that range, 479, 480. So, there we go. Speculation. It's always fun to speculate. Oh, and apparently I have a visitor. So hang tight, guys. Come on, up you go. There we go. Say hi to everybody. You saying hello? Okay. Got a visitor.
Simba had to make a cameo appearance.
Simba does like to do his cameos. He does. All right. Okay. Well, why don't we get into some questions? And if you have a question, I always like it when you put a Q in front of it. Then I know you're not kind of just chatting amongst yourselves, which is totally fine too. But we try to focus on questions that relate to the most people possible. So if it's a specific question, well, usually what we do is we ring our little bell here, if I can find it, this one, and we tell you to slide over and book a consult instead, because we don't want to be trying to attempt to offer a specific legal advice without having all the facts. And with a character limitation in a comment, it just doesn't work. So if you're wondering why your question maybe isn't getting answered, it might be too specific, and needs to be something of general interest to everyone. And we're really trying to make this as beneficial as possible to everyone. We'll do our best, notwithstanding that, to give some information. But if you say, should I leave, or is there a problem if I leave and come back, or how do I qualify? Those kinds of things that are those often are ones that we would direct you to book a consult, and pretty easy to do that. Just click on the link below. All right, let's jump in here. We'll pull out our little banner there, and we'll jump to the first question from Human. Okay, Human says, if someone received an ITA in a STEM draw, could this person receive another ITA in a next draw, like French? Are two ITAs at the same time possible?
Yeah. No. If you've got an ITA, you're in. So it's there, and then you have, 60 days to either accept it and to complete your EAPR, or you can say that you're going to decline that ITA. But once you have that ITA, you're not going to get a second one at the same time.
All right, let's see what we got here. So Elnaz says, I graduated from Seneca with 2-year diploma certificate. Can I apply for ONP International Student? So that's a perfect example of this. So Elnaz, we need a whole lot more information. Now, understand when you're, as far as the OINP, there's a number of different factors there. And, as far as eligibility goes for that, we would definitely need to assess more. So just a simple program, just that kind of, we just need more information. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Alicia, but really, yeah.
No, I mean, take a look at specifically the OINP International Student Eligibility categories. Take a look at the fine print to make sure that you're going through everything very carefully on the page. But basically, we would need to talk to you in depth to figure out how to apply your circumstances and what's been going on for you to the program criteria.
All right, next question. This one's from Mady. Mady says, in the reference letter, I claim points for a previous job at the same company. In working for, okay, I got promoted. Do I include the current job in the letter? So basically the previous one, and then you got a promotion.
Mhm.
Do you include both?
Yeah, so Mandy, normally I mean, it depends on every circumstance and what's going on for you and whether there's some sort of risk in doing so. But in general, if you are getting that letter of reference, and I'm assuming that you're looking at express entry, and I don't know if it's CC or FSW, but if you are looking at getting a letter of reference, immigration would like you to have listed on that employment letter every period of employment with that same employer, what your job title was, what your job duties were, what your pay was, what your hours were, and make sure that they break it out. So sometimes companies just say, you started back in 2012 and you're working till present and now you're the senior developer. Well, you didn't probably start in 2012 as a senior developer. So they actually want that employer to break out when you started in 2012, what was your role, what were your job duties, when did you get promoted, and then keep each of those things separate and distinct and have all the requirements that are on the completeness check.
Yeah.
In terms of 80% of the main duties,
Yeah. So I'll give some context. I think I understand. He says, well, the positions were virtually the same. I just got a little promotion, maybe a little more seniority, maybe a little wage, but they're by and large, they're kind of the same. Don't worry about it, matey. Put the same duties down. That's totally fine. That's not an issue. And add whatever additional duty on, or if there's more supervisory responsibility or you have an increase in pay, then just separate that out in the letter. But yeah, you don't want to just randomly mix up the duties. Yeah, you don't need to do that. Yeah.
yeah, and the other thing often I get asked from people is, well, if those are the knock duties, right, the bullet point list are the ones that don't start with May. So keep in mind that you have to be addressing the activity of the lead statement plus the majority of the main duties. When you're looking at the majority of the main duties, if your job has other things outside of the main duties as they're formulated in the knock, you can add that stuff, right? If there are other things that were integral to what you did with the company, for sure you can add more. So that's also fine.
All right. Next question. This one's from Daniela. She says, I have a CIRA score of 430, CLB 8 in French, yet didn't receive an ITA. Do you perhaps know what might be going on? And I think she's referring to the most recent draw. Now, it's possible that they could still be sending out invitations to apply. We have heard rumors from some of our colleagues that people who should have been drawn weren't. And, there's a little bit of a black box going on the other side here, Daniela, but maybe hang in there for a little bit longer and see, if it filters in. But yeah, I don't know, Alicia, if you have any answers for people who didn't get an ITA when they should have, because the round of invitations was 375.
And there have been a few instances where there's been a round and then people didn't actually finalize or get all of their ITAs in until about 24 hours later, maybe sometimes a day to 2 days. So it could be that there's some glitching and some delays in the system.
One other thing I want to point out too, Daniela, is sometimes, and in the past, there have been periods of time where people have, the government has made a shift or a change within Express Entry that's triggered an incomplete section in your profile. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that that's the case, but you might want to just go and take a look at your profile, make sure that truly everything has been properly uploaded, and that there isn't some section that says incomplete. And then that somehow puts your profile, bumped it out of active kind of consideration. I don't think that's the case, Daniela, but like when they rolled out the new knock changes from the 2016 to the tier system, a 5-digit, yeah, that was something that some people had noticed.
Yeah, it was also the case when they changed the questions for education for
Yep,
Canadian studies. And
yep,
so
good
some
point.
people missed out on that. And we definitely made a little blog and we tried to talk about it a lot on our lives, but that was another one of those circumstances where if you don't go and actually open up the education fields and take a look at those detailed questions, and if you've missed those, you're not going to get your points for your Canadian education. So be careful
Yeah,
with those.
yep. Okay, we'll hit the super chat from Lovey Dovey. She says, "Is it misrep if you work several periods for the same employer, same duties with gaps, but do one entry on EAPR with start date and end date? No points claimed for gaps. Should you put multiple entries on the EAPR?" So maybe I can tackle this one, Alicia. So I think what you're saying is if this is something in the work history, I wouldn't include this in the work history if you weren't going to claim points for it. So that's the starting point. But if for whatever reason you did, then if the system is not giving you points, maybe it's low wage work and you kind of had sporadic periods of time. If you do choose to do it that way and have it as one continuous work, then a clearly worded letter of explanation explaining that you had one or two little gaps and identifying specifically, when they were, can resolve that. But traditionally, we like to break things down so that they're accurate. And it does require more work. But if you truly were not working for a company, for example, if you were actually laid off and you received a record of employment, we would want that to be unemployed in your personal history. And then if you're called back, then you resume the work for that company. So that's how I typically advise. Alicia, do you have any extra thoughts or on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I'm really careful on the work history field. So, any period of work history, even if there's, I don't know, a summer layoff or something like that, or we get this a lot when you look at grad students, right? So, grad students are teaching and then they have a break and then they teach again. And I literally tell those students to put every single period in there as a separate entry. And then, of course, in your work history, as soon as you put in a period, it's going to say that when you do your EAPR, if you get an ITA, you have to generate a separate upload spot for every single period of employment. And so basically, you can have a really solid letter that breaks down each period of employment, your job, your duties, your role, your pay for each one, and all your pay stubs and tax documents, and just attach that same letter to each of those periods. So you can definitely deal with it that way as well. But Mark is correct. If you have not low wage, but low skill work, so if you have anything that's going to be in the lower tiers, right? So tier 4 or 5, those ones are not going to be eligible for points ever. So there's no point in ever putting those in your work history section. Those would go into your personal history.
Yes. All right. So this is Sajad, one of our H1Bers. He says, "I'm 43 years old with 16 years of experience in IT." Yes, you are someone that Canada wants. "Currently stuck in green card backlog in the US." What, Sajad, you've got another 20 years probably? Not surprising. "What are my chances of getting picked for this special program for H1Bs stuck in the US?"
Mhm.
So do you want to talk a little bit about this crazy, because it's not really being picked, Sajad?
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard that a lot actually in my consults this week and last week. A lot of people are saying, well, what are the chances? Who are they going to pick? And as far as we know, there's no ranking within it. It is just the first past the post. Whoever can type the fastest, whoever has their documentation and supporting things ready and can get that application filed, it's going to be a race, right? So if you
Mhm.
happen to be one of the first 10,000 people to get that application properly submitted, paid for, and into immigration, then those are the people that tend to win out. We saw this with the TR to PR system. And some people are asking, well, how long will it take to process? Again, we don't know. But what we saw with the TR to PR process was that if you were within the first 7 minutes of getting your application
Yeah.
filed when those portals went open, you got your PR within months, right? A
Yeah.
few months
Well,
and you were a permanent
literally
resident.
2 weeks. Like my record was, I think, under 2 weeks for one of my students, the 450 people that went through the last DIY course. And
Mhm.
yeah, the first people, the government has said processing times will be 0 to 2 months. That's
Yeah.
the processing times for this. But yeah, first in, right? It's a literal frenzy race to file.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the bad news on the TR to PR is that the people who didn't get their application in within the first few minutes, 2 years later, they're still waiting. right?
Yeah.
So hopefully this is not one of those scenarios, but really it really matters how quickly you get this application filed.
Yeah. And just to explain, you guys, like we've done every evening, we do the masterclass where we basically answer every question out there. And then the lessons, the individual lessons, and there's a reason that I have content added daily because it is. I'm constantly adding and updating and including more and more information because at this stage, until they actually release what's going to happen, we don't know for sure. But anyone who subscribes to the course, I'm literally teaching them every single thing I know about work permits in Canada, including pointing out the locations where it might be where the government is likely to open up the portal, but then helping people to get ready no matter what the contingency is, filling out any necessary forms if they go through the IRCC secure account, which is the GC key that people are talking about, or whether it's just the IRCC portal where you're trying to figure out how to fill that information in. If the people who have it ready, the people who have all their information, have all the documents, and if you look at the document section, we have a ton of things listed on here. And I suspect a quarter of this, not even a quarter of it, will actually be required. But if the people have everything ready, all lined up, they'll be ready to be the first in to submit their applications. And yeah, it's going to be a frenzy. And the people who are prepared and ready, I suspect Saturday is probably when they're going to announce the actual details. It seems like they're reticent to do it before, out of fear that some of you smarty pantses out there are going to figure out some way to integrate and upload documents faster or information and get an unfair advantage. So yeah, so there's still time. The link should be in the description below for the video here. But yeah, you can just slide over to the Canadian Immigration Institute and join. So like I said, there's still all of the past videos are still available for you to watch and get caught up. All the on-demand information is there, but it is going to be so dynamic, and literally those who are ready for every contingency will get in and those who won't. It's not like they've given you a month to submit like in the US, right? Like the H-1B, like you guys are used to, and then a lottery. It's not that. This is a first come, first serve. And the cart will close. And what's going to happen, Alicia, is that people are going to, I'm going to go back to my materials. People are going to be going registered, and they're going to be filling it out. They're going to hit some spots. They're like, oh, dang, I don't know that answer. And then they're going to have to go look for it. And they're not going to be ready. And then they're going to get ready to be the very end of the process, because this is what happened with the TR to PR pathway. They'll be at the very end of the process and then go click to submit. And they'll be like, oh, this button is not, it's not like it's grayed out. Like, why can't I submit through the portal? Why can't I click submit? It's because the cap has been reached. So you will have wasted hours and hours submitting, preparing and getting ready to submit, only to be disappointed at the end. So that's the goal with this course, is to get people completely ready no matter what contingency happens. All right, there you go, Sajad. Let's get to some more questions here. Let's see. Sana says, my work experience become 3 years on August. Okay, we've seen this happen before, Alicia. So this is August, it's July now. But my score was updated on July. I received an ITA with a score of 487, but it should have been 462. If it was 2 years experience, not 3, should I refuse my ITA? The cutoff score was 463.
So Sana, I mean, anytime you're asking, should I do this or should I do something else, we definitely need to speak with you and have a consultation, because we never want to be in a position where we tell somebody something that is incorrect or that messes up your application. And if we don't know a whole bunch more about how many years of experience is this, your second year of Canadian experience, what did you put when you were doing the questionnaire? When is your work permit expiring? Is this, we have a whole bunch of things that we would need to canvass with you before we could give you advice. But in general, people need to be cautious if they are getting points too early, right? And so if you have a valid work permit and you know you've got extra time and you're still working for your employer, and it's going to be safer to simply, decline this ITA and wait for the next one, maybe. Or maybe you really need this ITA. Maybe you're not sure if you'll ever get another one. So it really, really depends. Under some circumstances, if you're still working for the same employer and you wait before you finalize your EAPR until after you clearly have those, full years of experience, well, sometimes people do that as well and they take the risk. But we can't give you advice. We would need to talk with you. So please book a consult.
All right. Let's see what else we have here. Let's go with, okay, Lisa's got a question, and I'm just going to address this one generally because a lot of people have these questions. So she says, I gave my biometrics in June on the 26th. However, it still says in my account that my fingerprints are still needed. Is that normal? Anytime you're relying on your portal, the information in the summary, the status, anytime you're relying on that to give you accurate information on where things are at, you will be disappointed. The government systems are just wrought with problems right now. Fraught, wrought, pick your word. It's just, there's huge issues, whether it's the web form or whether it's the online portals. And so I never put any stock in those things. If you've completed your biometrics, June 26th is only a few days ago. Like really, it's 2 weeks. And so understand that these things sometimes take time, but I would definitely not get worked up about that. Other people were asking, they're talking about processing, and these things take time, but we've kind of created this culture within Canadian immigration that everybody expects everything on demand. And then when it doesn't go as fast, or they hear of somebody else who's went forward faster, then they get concerned. Well, when it comes to processing, the only thing that I pay attention to is what the stated processing times are on the government website. If an individual or one of our clients is beyond that processing time and they reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Then sometimes we may consider requesting GCMS notes to determine if there's something holding it up. And if we see something in there that they've got a concern about, then we will proactively add another submission for that client to address whatever concerns may be requiring it to go to a further review. So I understand how important this stuff is for people, and wanting to see Canadian Blood Services. I guess it's time for me to give blood. And so when you're doing this, as far as the middle stages and how fast they go, if you've done your part, then it's not necessarily going to show up right away. So just a little tidbit. Okay. Let's see what's next.
And I'll just add to that too,
mm-hmm.
Mark, that
Please.
biometrics are now required, right? There were
Mm-hmm.
some exemptions during COVID to say that if you had biometrics that were valid within a certain period of time, you don't have to do new biometrics. However, as of just recently, I think last month, mid-June, they said everybody now has to do new biometrics again. So, don't get caught out on that. Make sure that you're paying those biometrics, the $85 biometric fee if you're doing a temporary application. And if you have to do new biometrics, make sure that you go quickly and do that if you get that biometric instruction letter. So normally you've got 30 days.
Yes. We've got a couple other random questions I'll just pull up here. So Cheaton says, will you be doing a session on spousal open work permits? I think Cheaton's an immigration consultant. Would you be doing a session on spousal open work permit for TFWs working in tier 4 and 5 under low wage category anytime soon? Maybe. Right now you can see where our focus is. It's this H-1B stuff. And then of course, continuing with our lives. And I have another express entry masterclass that's going to be launching at the end of the month. So that's where our priorities are. This is a huge development in the world of spousal open work permits, because for years and years, right, Cheaton, individuals in low skill positions, the old NOC C and Ds, or in this case now tier 4 and 5, spouses were not able to get open work permits. It was only if the principal applicant, the principal spouse, had a skilled one. So so we'll see how these things are rolling out. And I can't remember, Alicia, have they actually opened this yet? Or is it still just, has the policy come into play? I'm not sure. I can't remember if now they're authorizing it. They talked about it at the beginning of the year as rolling out, but they didn't give a specific date. And even dependent children, being able to get open work permits.
I'll have to check if they've actually opened it, but
Sure.
last I looked, it said that they were coming. It was coming.
Yeah, that's what happened. So, all right. Tanu says, is a digital photo enough as per the requirements, or we also scan the physical copy with details of the photography studio? And I'll maybe tackle this one too, Alicia, while you're looking that up. We have conflicting information all over the place. It depends on the type of application you're submitting. When you're filing applications for work permits online or even express entry, they don't really get too fussed, you guys, with digital photos. In other words, getting a digital photo with the actual backer that shows the stamp of the photo studio, the date the photo was taken, and then asking you to type to print your name and your date of birth on the back. That is all old school when they had you submit paper applications, right? Because guess what happened back in those days with lots of files stacked on officers' desks? Sometimes pictures slid off onto the floor and then they couldn't remember which application it was attached to. And so that's why they had people put on the back of it the name and date of birth. And so some people are wondering, do we scan the front and then the back of one of the photos and upload both of them? Well, we don't know what type of application you're submitting, Tanu. But usually what we do for the most part is, for digital applications, even for the work permits, I usually just include a scan of that front photo page that's just clear and that looks like the sample photos that they have. I typically don't get too fussed over file size and things like that. But as long as the diameters of the photo are, length and width and height and stuff like that, not width, length and height are the same, they match those parameters, then that's usually pretty okay. But in some other applications like the PR portal, the instructions really seem to indicate that they want both sides. So we'll include them. But I don't think there's a specific right or wrong with this. But Alicia, what are your thoughts? Because we don't know which application Tanu is filing here.
Yeah, so if it does have a radio button, right, if it has that little button with a question mark, click that, because often it does have some pixel size, it has megabyte limits, it says it wants at a resolution of at least this. So if that's the case, then make sure that you're doing that. If you're worried about it, you can do both, right? You can put in the digital photo, and if you have the physical photo, then just put in the front and back, and you can add both of those and they can choose which one they want as long as they all meet the photo requirements. It does have to be clear. It can't have shadows. It can't be blurry. So take a look at the specific application you are filing.
Here's a great question. This is from Satnam. He says, can we claim our LMIA points in express entry, the 50 points for the offer of employment, after the expiry of, I think what he's saying, the LMIA and not the work permit? So I previously obtained a work permit, or I'm currently working on it, that was for an LMIA that has expired. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to restrict our answer to a situation where the LMIA was used to get your current work permit. So, Alicia, in those circumstances, and you're working in Canada, so if those are in place, Alicia, are the points still possible?
Yeah. So take a look at my article on, can I claim CRS points for my job offer? And that's going to give you all the legislation, all the details broken down. But usually, yes. So the expiry of the LMIA is not determinative of whether you have a valid work permit or not. So when you're looking at arranged employment points, if you are a named worker, so you have an employer-specific LMIA-based work permit, and your employer has given you a new job offer. So, a new offer saying that they intend to continue to employ you for a year after you get your PR, those are the key things that are going to make you potentially eligible for those 50 points. So, if the LMIA itself has expired, as long as you have a valid work permit that has your name listed with that employer and your employer says they will continue to employ you for another year, then that is what's going to give you the arranged employment points. Be careful though, because if your work permit's imminently coming to an end, then you're going to have to make sure that you get some sort of way to extend your employer-specific work permit. So that's kind of the caveat. If you lose the ability to have a valid employer-specific work permit, then you will also lose those 50 points.
All right. Okay. Hardeep's question is non-express entry. PNP Nova Scotia, we received AOR on the 15th of February, but after that, nothing, no PAL, no meds. Okay. So there you go. You're still early. The processing times, look at the full processing times for PNPs. What are they? I think are they still 12 months? I know they came down.
I think they came down to 7 last time we checked, Mark.
Let's take a look at here and see what the IRCC processing times are. Slide over
And in the
here.
meantime, I'll jump into, and I did look up the low skilled workers to answer that question. I sent the link in our Teams chat, Mark.
It's 18 months. Yeah.
It
So
jumped
these
back
ones
up, hey?
for PNPs is 18 months. And I think maybe this one did stay high. And this is where it is. Like for years and years, these paper-based, they've just had it at 18 months and they haven't changed. The reason typically that they're not too fussed about this is, most PNPs are actually living and working in the provinces. There are some obviously that are overseas, but 18 months has been traditionally what they've adhered to. And so this was just updated yesterday. So yeah, in the
Yeah.
case of this individual here, you are well within the normal typical processing.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. The one that had come down to 7 months was FSW. So,
Yes.
and then
Okay,
if you want to,
and I'm going to flip over here to our the open work permit policy here. Is that what we were talking about? I'm all twisted
yeah,
around.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
was the question about, are we going to be talking about open work permit for lower skilled jobs for the spouses? And yes, this is in effect. So if you scroll down and you open up the low skilled worker, you'll see that there are requirements for the principal foreign worker. And so for sure, you still have to have a valid work permit or be working without a work permit, but you're authorized to work. But keep in mind, students who are transitioning to PGWP are not eligible, right? So if you happen to be a student,
Oh,
and it's the first bullet, number one, it says an authorization exception, family members of students who can work off campus or who are transitioning to PGWP are not eligible. So be careful
wow.
about that. Yeah, because that's one that's caught a few people. And then you have to make sure that that work permit is valid for at least 6 months. And then you have to show that you are employed, right? So, yeah, and you're living, or the principal applicant is living or plans to be living in Canada. And then the other thing is keep in mind that there's this gray box at the bottom. If you happen to be under the low wage stream, seasonal agricultural worker program, or the agricultural stream, those people cannot have their spouses apply for that open work permit.
Okay. All right. And there's policy reasons for this type of thing. Usually seasonal the SOP program, usually they expect, and part of the agreements they have with those countries, that these people are going to come work for a period of time and then they're going to come home. And so they're not really facilitating, entire families from coming. That's just part of the agreements that they have. Okay. Okay. We got a fan from Nigeria. Abo, thanks very much. Okay. Let's hit this one right on the head. This is Kunal. He says, "Hi, Mark. Can I work full time while on a study visa?" Okay. This is oh man.
Okay, so you don't want to if you want to be able to claim Canadian work experience, right? You will be shooting yourself in the foot if you're going to be compromising your ability to get good marks and to pass your program. So Mark did a whole video on this. I have written an article on it. So there is some information on our website. Be really, really careful. Like whether you can do something is one thing, but should you do it is another. So if you
Yeah.
are here on a study permit, so you've got a valid study permit, there are rules that now allow people to work in certain circumstances, but you have to make sure that you have gone through this entire page and check every single eligibility requirement because some people are not allowed to work full time.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing to say. The
Actually, I'm
second
going to
thing
pull
to
back
say,
to the other, uh, let's see, I think this is the policy. So there's two things I wanted to pull up here. The question was, as a student, can I work full time while on a study visa? And this one here is the one, where they lift for a limitation. And once again, Alicia's got a blog post on this, the more than 20 hours per week off campus. And maybe you could just hit briefly on just the general rule and, up into this goofy policy that I think, let's see, when does it come to an end? Essentially the end of the
December.
year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people are going to be caught out about this because what they're saying is you still have to meet the conditions of your study permit. And one of the conditions of your study permit is that you have to be successfully completing your program of studies. So it's very difficult to work full time and also study full time because if you lose your full time study status, you are now not eligible to work full time, right? It's only if you're a full time student. So you have to be passing all of your courses and you have to be doing well in your program. If you're not, then you can lose your study permit. So the next thing to keep in mind is that the normal rule is that students are not allowed to work more than 20 hours during the school year, and only they can work full time during regularly scheduled school breaks. So if you look at the detailed policy rules around who can work full time, you have to make sure that you're following absolutely everything to the T and be really careful about it because this is only a temporary public policy. It's going to end by the end of the year. And then the next thing is that when you have completed your studies, you have to stop working still. So the instant that you get notification that you have either got a letter from your school, you've got your transcripts, or you've got your diploma, or you have your ceremony, you have to stop working entirely. So this policy still doesn't apply. Um, Same rules as always. The instant you get notice of completion of your program, you must stop working completely. You can't even work part-time up until the day that you submit your PGWP if your program is PGWP eligible.
Yeah.
And then you can work full-time again.
All right, we'll shift gears. We'll mix it up here. Sylvester says, the program I used in applying my visa ended last year. I want to visit this month. What do I say at the point of entry, at the port of entry? I think what he means is maybe there was a, like, I don't know if it's study permit or whatever authorized him to come, but it's ended. So Sylvester, this is a perfect example of where Alicia and I, we really can't answer. I'm going to ring the bell. And I'm going to direct you, like I do for everybody, to come over to our website over here, right up at the top, speak to a lawyer, and then come down here and book a consultation. It's just simple to click 25-minute consult, and away you go. Going through your question, we can't advise you or counsel you what to say. The reality is it's pretty simple. You have to be honest. And if the underlying purpose for your visa is over and ended last year, then you have to be able to justify to a border service officer why you're seeking entry now and that your entry truly is temporary. So we recommend you book a consult, Sylvester. We've got Lahori here from Germany, and he says, is H-1B work permit also for Pakistan? So we've got obviously limited information here, Alicia, but what do we know at least from the basic information about H-1Bs, about where people need to be?
Mm-hmm. So for a Pakistani, so if you happen to be a citizen of Pakistan, but you are working in the US and you have a
Oh,
valid
thanks. I
H-1B,
didn't catch that. Yes.
then there's nothing saying that it's only for certain nationalities. The key, as far as we know, is that it has to be H-1B visa holders, who specialty occupation visa holders who are in the US. So if you have an H-1B specialty occupation and you are physically in the US with status, then you should be eligible as well. It doesn't say citizens of which country.
Okay. Okay. Danielle's got a couple questions. Let's just see if I can figure it out. Okay. She says, when picking in the French stream draw, any ideas of how they pick from the draw? I'm just so confused with the two recent draws. Well, it's pretty simple.
And Danielle is the one who was saying that for
Yes.
some reason she wasn't
Yeah.
picked.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, and then she says, I have a CIRA score 430. Do you know what was happening? And my profile is up to date. Okay. Here's the follow-up. So my profile is up to date. What do you think might, if I don't get an IT in the next 48 hours, do you think there's a way to contact IRCC? Never experienced this before, Daniela. So I don't know if any of our colleagues were able to, to rectify this with their previous issues. I just don't know. Ultimately, Daniela, one of the things that you can rest at least some confidence in is the fact that if you were drawn under or should have been drawn under a friend stream, then one option you have is to basically just cancel your profile and re-enter a new profile to get back in, because you can see where the draws are. If they continue to do francophone draws, it's going to be it's likely you will get another ITA. But with that being said, don't make any rash decisions now. Wait. But yeah, as far as notifying IRCC, hey, you didn't give me an ITA, that's not something that's in our in our wheelhouse.
I mean, immigration does want to know, right? So if there is a technical glitch, they do want to know. So what they have told us as immigration lawyers is if you have a situation where a client has not had their profile picked, take screenshots of everything, right? Take screenshots of your profile, your score, get that page that shows what your breakdown was and that your profile is valid, and then send them screenshots and say, hey, look, here's what happened and I wasn't picked in this draw if more than 48 hours goes by, and send it by web form, because they at least want to know, because it seems like there might be a technical glitch.
Okay, we'll wrap up with two express entry questions. First one, the B, is it compulsory to notarize gift deeds for FSW? I always get those notarized if I'm relying on funds coming from, I hope it's a family member, and gift deed is a concept that really hovers around India. I always will get gift deeds notarized or, sworn statement when I'm doing that, because it's a legally binding document that says the money is being given freely, that it is an irrevocable gift, and that there's no expectation that it will be returned. So that kind of stuff I always do. I always want to get those notarized. Obviously, you
And
want to try to do what you can to make sure you've got the funds in the way that IRCC wants you to. But yeah, Alicia, you have a little thing to add?
I was just going to say, and also the B had sent an earlier comment that they finally got an ITA after waiting a long time. So congratulations, the B.
Really? Let's
Hmm.
see. Trying to figure out where is it here. Okay. And saying hello from the greatest and best Black nation in the world. Glad to also announce that I've gotten my IT after a long time. That is fantastic. I'm so happy. Okay, we've got something going on there. We've got some applause. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Thanks for pointing that out, Alicia. Okay. All right. And then the last one is from Eric. So this comes down to FSW and the 1 year of continuous full-time work. So I'm not sure about the work experience continuity requirement for FSW. Would a few days gap be considered discontinuous? So
Hmm.
we don't know what that gap would be, but let's take it from the standpoint that it's the same employer, but you're just not working every single day. And then compare that to if you have a few days gap between when you're changing employers, and so what do you typically advise people when, let's say, they finish their work on a Friday with one company and start on a Monday with the other? It's the same knock code, would that be considered continuous? What do you think?
Yeah. So uh, I always am careful about whether you're meeting the minimum eligibility criteria for federal skilled worker. So if you need that full year, those 1,560 hours in 52 weeks to meet that minimum eligibility criteria, you want to be rock solid on that. You don't want to be dancing around minus a few days. If you're looking at, subsequent work periods in terms of looking at how many years of foreign work experience can you claim after you've met that minimum eligibility criteria, then usually they say that paid vacation for sure is fine, right? If you are working for a company and you have 2 weeks paid vacation and you get paid and you take your vacation, that's totally normal. So it really does depend, and it might be a situation like Mark said, where you end on a Friday, you start on the next Monday. Normally, those things um, are fairly continuous, but you want to be careful on the minimum eligibility requirements, and hopefully that'll send you in the right direction. And Mark, I saw a comment from Anatoly there that he's chimed in from England, and that was nice
Oh,
of him to say
oh, okay.
hello. So
Okay, we'll get this one as well. I'm just going to hit Carlos first here. Seems like there's no end to our interactions with our good friends and clients. Carlos here, he reminded me, I had a consult with him. He said, Mark, I got an email from IRCC to provide more information so I could get my PR, but they sent the information for those inside Canada. Responded June 26th and still no answer. Please remind everyone. I forgot. Thanks, Carlos. So in some cases, the system is screwed up and you may be outside of Canada, but you get instructions to go through the inland portal. And in the case of some people, they don't even have any connection with Canada. There's no address or otherwise. And in this case, Carlos is reminding me to tell people similarly, like him in the US, that sometimes that happens. And you can't just go through the process that they tell you. You have to notify them. And so, you can see here, Carlos is still waiting for a response. And, the response time to respond is coming up quick. And yeah, it's so frustrating, Carlos. So I recommend, at least in your situation, that you send another web form and maybe even try to call the call center. And I think, I guess the question becomes whether the 1-800 number works in the States. Well, Carlos, just feel free to reconnect for another consult, and we can see if we might need to try to do something else to help, because and we've seen refusals when it's just wrong, like the officers have just made a mistake. So. All right. I think, and then you said, let's see if I can find, as I'm scrolling through this, let's see, who do we have, Alicia? Let's
it's
see, you just mentioned Anatoly. Let me just see if
Anatoly.
I
Yeah.
can find. I've got, let's see if we can find it here. There we go. Okay, here we go. Yes, Anatoly says, hi, Mark and Alicia from England. Worked with Alicia for a month to prepare the EAPR. Finally submitted on Tuesday. Her help was indispensable. Glad I made the right choice, leaving a review on Google now. Hey, thank you so much. And that really means a lot, because most people say, these jokers, everybody can do it themselves. You don't need to hire anyone. And so it really means a lot when people, when they take the time to leave reviews. And I'll slide over here. When you go to book a consult with Alicia, you can see our reviews are here, and we take great pride in these things. And it's just, just really, really good. There's another person. I'm very grateful for Alicia as my consultant for guiding and supporting me on the whole process. Definitely collaborative work between the applicant and the consultant. Thank you so much. I definitely recommend Holthe. Now, we'd like to see lawyer there, but that's okay. It's still the same. We provide that same kind of support. So so all of these, reviews are just, we really appreciate it so very much. And Anatoly, we appreciate you doing that. But what's the difference, between what we do and other firms? Well, there's lots of really good representatives out there and good firms that do a lot to help people. But I think the one thing that Alicia and I try to get across as much as anything else is that we care. And even the model that we choose to follow is not the most profitable model for immigration lawyers. But it's one where we feel the product going out and the service the client gets is second to none. So we really, really appreciate all the positive feedback. And Anatoly, we really appreciate you taking the time to chime in. And thanks for catching that, Alicia. All right, Doria's got one final question here. Should I report only the work I am claiming points for in the work history section and the irrelevant work personal history? Yes, is the answer. And just to clarify that one, you guys, in the work history section of the express entry, that's what Doria is asking. But always make sure that everything you've done in the last 10 years is fully documented in the personal history. All right. We're going to wrap this critter up. We'll turn on our little music here. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And once again, I want to remind everyone that the H-1B work permit is going to fill up on Sunday. If you have any desire, any thoughts about doing it, the government will likely not release any information until Saturday, it seems like. So if you want to prepare now, if you want to be educated, if you want to understand what you need to do to be ahead of the game and ahead of other people who are also thinking about doing it, and you don't want to be surprised, come join us in our H-1B holder work permit. Tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to go live. You can check out the comments from I just pulled these off last night at the end. People always post nice comments at the end of our stream, just like I'm pulling them on our screen right now. And so go check it out and come join us. All right. Take care, everybody. See you.